今天是2025年10月12号，现在是周天晚上，快要8点了。外面在下雨，据说周一有台风啊。哎呀，能吹到这么北的台风还是蛮少见的。好不容易有个长周末，还是台风，有点不爽。这周看了一个很好看的英剧啊，叫《南方北方》。它只有4集，每集大概1个小时，所以看完之后意犹未尽，我又去找了它的这个英文原著，叫《North and South》，是 Elizabeth Gaskell 写的。这个作者是跟夏洛蒂·布朗特，就是写《简爱》的那个，以及那位作者以及那个布朗蒂3姐妹。那个作家家庭是基本一个时代的。这个他最有名的这本小说呢，《南方北方》，写于大概是1853到1854年。当时的英语跟现在的英语当然差别是比较大的，但是这本书呢，并不是经过了一定修改之后，然后就是现代化修改之后，然后发表出来的这么一个著作，所以今天这是我看的这个版本。我觉得那个剧真的挺好看的，很细腻非常建议去看一看。故事讲的就是一个女主 Margaret 呢，是在英国南部的一个小镇出生的。她出生于一个比较贫穷的牧师家庭。她的妈妈呢是嫁给爱情，就是嫁给她爸爸呢，就是因为喜欢她爸爸，这么一个穷牧师，然后并没有考虑到经济的现状。结果过了这么多年之后，当爱情消失了之后，没有物质基础的这个物质基础比较薄弱的婚姻生活，其实并没有特别的幸福相反呢，他的妈妈的姐姐吧，他的姨妈，则嫁给了一个很有钱的老头，然后老头去世之后，他们的姨妈就变成了一个很有钱的寡妇。然后姨妈，这本书没有说明白，就是她，好像在很小的时候呢就被送去姨妈家，跟她的表妹一起生活。那可能就是完全因为她姨妈比较富有，想给她的孩子找个伴儿。然后后来她表妹结婚之后呢，她就又回到了她的家乡这个南方的小镇。然后他这个爸爸是个比较，女主的爸爸是个比较理想主义的人。他虽然是一个牧师，但是呢，他发现自己完全无法认同当时教会的一些做法或者一些教条，他没有办法就是昧着自己的良心去干一些事情，所以说他就决定辞职不再做这个牧师了。然后呢，他们全家就搬到了北方的以Manchester 为这种原型打造的这么一个北方小镇叫 Milton。他们在那儿北方工业城市叫 Milton。然后因为那里离老家很远，没有人认识他们。他爸爸就是想要一个 way out 吧。然后这个时候就在这样的一个工业城市呢，男主跟女主相遇了。所以这个电视剧还是精简了非常多的。这个原著本身其实蛮长的，讲的也比较琐碎，我们就来随便读一读吧。这一段讲的是他爸爸已经决定 quit 他的 job 之后呢，他又不敢告诉他妈妈，因为他妈妈就是一直就很不高兴，说自己的生活跟跟姐姐相差了这么多。这个时候他还把他稳定的 job 辞掉了，那就是整个家都没有什么稳定的收入了。他就不敢去面对他的妻子，然后他想让他的女儿去跟他的妻子说明白他的这个选择。Mr. Hale shook his head. He presented her hand in gratitude. Margaret nearly burst out crying again. To turn herself, she said, "Now tell me, Papa, what our plans are. You and Mamma have some money of your own, have you not?" "Yes, I suppose we have about £170 a year. 70 of that has always gone to Frederick since he has been abroad. I don't know if he wants it all." He must have some pay for serving with the Spanish army. Frederick must not suffer, said Margaret decidedly. In a foreign country so unjustly treated by his own, 100 is left. Could not we live on 100 a year in some very quiet part of England? No, said Mr. Hale, that would not answer. I must do something. I must make myself busy to keep off morbid thoughts. But in a country parish, I should be so painfully reminded of Houston. I could not bear it, Margaret, and 100 a year would not go far towards providing your mother with all the comforts she ought to have. No, we must go to Milton. That is settled. I can always decide better by myself, said he, as a half apology for having arranged it already. 这北方的工业城市环境是比较差的，你要是看那个电影也会看到，就真的跟就是都是污水啊，然后 loud noise 什么的，因为是工厂所在地嘛。Margaret resolved to keep silence. After all, what did it signify where they went compared to the one terrible change? Mr. Hale continued, a few months ago, when my misery of doubt became more than I could bear, I wrote to Mr. Bell. You remember Mr. Bell, Margaret? I never saw him, but I know who he is, Frederick's godfather, your old tutor at Oxford, don't you mean? Yes, he's a fellow of Plymouth College. He's a native Milton Northern and has property there. While I felt sure of sympathy from Mr. Bell, I don't know that he gave me much strength. He has always lived an easy life in his college, but he has been as kind as can be. 这个 Mr. Bell 是个很聪明的人啊，是个很快乐的单身汉，然后本来家里就有钱，自己又挣钱，所以说 live very comfortably. And it is owing to him we are going to Milton. He has tenants and houses there. So though the place is too bustling for him, he keeps up the connection, and he tells me that there is a good opening for a private tutor. A private tutor? Said Margaret scornfully. What do manufacturers want with the classics, or literature, or the accomplishments of a gentleman? Oh, said her father, some of them seem to be fine fellows, conscious of their own deficiencies, which is more than many a man at Oxford is. Some want to learn themselves. Some want their children to be better instructed than they themselves have been. Mr. Bell has recommended to Mr. Thornton. 这 Mr. Thornton 是男主，a tenant of his. 所以 Mr. Thornton 男主租了这个 Mr. Bell 的房子。这个在电影里面没有说的特别清楚啊，但是你到最后能感觉出来。电视剧 and a very intelligent man, as far as I can judge from his letters, and in Milton, Margaret, I shall find a busy life, if not a happy one, and I shall never be reminded of Houston. There was a secret motive, as Margaret knew from her own feelings. It would be different. Although she almost detested all she had ever heard of the north of England, the manufacturers, the people, the wild, bleak country, there was this one recommendation: it would be different from Houston, and could never remind them of that beloved place. When do we go? She asked. 其实他妈妈一直没有很喜欢 Houston， 他妈妈是一个 London girl， 就是从伦敦来的嘛。他爸爸很喜欢 Houston， 所以他跟他爸爸比较喜欢 Houston. In a fortnight, after my resignation sent in, I shall have no right to remain. Margaret was almost stunned. In a fortnight? Nothing is mixed, said her father anxiously. But she recovered herself immediately. Yes, Papa, it had better be fixed soon. Only Mamma knows nothing about it. That is the great perplexity. Poor Maria, replied Miss Hale. I dare not tell her. No, said Margaret sadly. I will do it. Give me till tomorrow evening to choose my time. Oh, Papa, cried she, with sudden passionate entreaty, say it is a nightmare, not the waking truth. You cannot mean that you are really going to leave the church to give up Houston. led away by some delusion. Mr. Hale sat in rigid stillness. Then he said in a slow, hoarse, measured way, I do mean it, Margaret. Do not doubt the reality of my words and my resolve. He looked at her in a steady, stony manner. She gazed back with pleading eyes before she would believe that it was irrevocable. Then she arose and went, without another word, towards the door. As her fingers were on the handle, he called her back. He was standing by the fireplace, shrunk and stooping, but as she came near, he drew himself up to his full height, and placing his hands on her head, he said solemnly, The blessing of God be upon thee, my child, and may he restore you to his church, responded she. The next moment she feared lest this answer might hurt him, and she threw her arms around his neck. He held her for a minute. She heard him murmur to himself, The martyrs and confessors had more pain to bear. I will not shrink. They were startled by hearing Miss Hale inquiring for her daughter. Mr. Hale hurriedly said, Go, Margaret, go. I shall be out all tomorrow. Before night you will have told your mother. Yes, she replied, and returned to the drawing-room in a stunned and dizzy state. Decision. 她要跟妈妈坦白了。Margaret made a good listener to all her mother's little plans for helping the poorer parishioners, though each new project was a step to her heart. Old Simon's rheumatism might be bad and his eyesight worse. There would be no one to go and read to him and take him broth. Mary Domville's little crippled boy would crawl in vain to the door and look for her coming through the forest. These poor friends and many others would never understand why she had forsaken them. The winter is likely to be severe, said her mother, and the old people must be helped. Oh, Mamma, let us do all we can, said Margaret eagerly. We may not be there long. Do you feel ill, my darling? Asked Miss Hale. You look pale and tired. It is this damp, unhealthy air. No, Mamma, it is delicious air. It smells fresh and pure after the smokiness of Harley Street, but I am tired. It must be near bedtime. You had better go to bed, dear. Ask Diskin for some gruel. I'm afraid you have taken cold. Oh, Mamma, said Margaret, faintly smiling as she kissed her mother. I am quite well. Don't alarm yourself. To soothe her mother's anxiety, she submitted to a basin of gruel. She was lying in bed when Miss Hale came up to kiss her good night. But the instant she heard her mother's door locked, she sprang out of bed and, throwing her dressing gown on, began to pace up and down the room until the creaking of the boards reminded her that she must make no noise. She went and curled up on the window seat. That morning, when she had looked out, her heart had danced at seeing the sunlight of the church tower. This evening she sat down with a dull, cold pain, which seemed to have pressed the youth and buoyancy out of her heart. Mr. Henry Lennox's visit was like a dream. The hard reality was that her father had made himself an outcast. All the resulting changes grouped themselves around that one great blighting fact. She looked out upon the dark gray lines of the church tower, square and straight, cutting against the deep blue transparent depths beyond, into which she gazed, and felt that she might gaze forever, seeing at every moment some farther distance, and yet no sign of God. It seemed to her as if the earth was utterly desolate. Those never-ending depths of space in their still serenity were mocking to her. The cries of earth's zephyrs might ascend into that infinite splendor of vastness and be lost forever. before they reached his throne. Her father came in unheard and touched her shoulder. Margaret, I heard you were up. I could not help coming in to ask you to pray with me, to say the Lord's Prayer that will do us both good. They knelt by the window seat, he looking up. She bowed in humble shame. God was there, hearing her father's whispered words. Her father might be a heretic, but had not she, in her desperate 5 minutes before, shown herself a far more utter skeptic? After her father left her, she stole to bed like a child ashamed of its fault. If the world was full of perplexing problems, she would only ask to see the one step needful for the hour. Mr. Lennox's proposal, the memory of which had been so rudely pushed aside by the day's event, haunted her dreams that night. He was climbing up some tall tree to reach the branch whereon was slung her bonnet. He was falling, and she was struggling to save him, but held back by some invisible powerful hand, he was dead. And then she was once more in the Harley Street drawing room, talking to him as of old, and yet knowing that she had seen him killed by the terrible fall. Miserable night. She awoke with a start, unrefreshed and conscious of a reality worse ever than her fairish dreams. It all came back upon her, the sorrow and the terrible discord. Where had her father wandered, led by doubts which were to her temptations of the evil one? She longed to ask and yet did not want to hear. The fine, crisp morning made her mother particularly happy at breakfast time. She talked on, not heeding her husband's silence and Margaret's monosyllabic answers. Before the things were cleared away, Mr. Hale got up. I shall not be at home till evening. I'm going to Brassey Common, and we'll be back to tea at 7. Margaret knew what he meant, but by 7 the announcement must be made to her mother. Mr. Hale would have delayed making it till 6:30, but Margaret was of different stuff. She could not bear the weight on her mind all day long. Better get it over. But while she stood by the window waiting for the servant to leave the room, her mother had gone upstairs to put on her things to go to the school. She came down briskly, ready equipped. Mother, come around the garden with me this morning, said Margaret, putting her arm around Miss Hale's waist. They went outside. Miss Hale said something. Margaret could not tell what. Her eye caught on a bee entering a deep-belled flower. When that bee flew forth, she would begin. Out he came. Mama, Papa is going to leave Houston. She blurted. He's going to leave the church and live in Milton Northern. What makes you say so? Asked Miss Hale in an incredulous voice. Who has been telling you such nonsense? Papa himself, said Margaret, longing to say something gentle and consoling, but not knowing how. Miss Hale sat down on a garden bench and began to cry. I don't understand you, she said. You have made some great mistake. No, Mother, I have made no mistake. Papa has written to the bishop saying that he has such doubts that he cannot remain a priest of the Church of England, and that he must give up Houston. He has also consulted Mr. Bell, Frederick's godfather, you know, and it is arranged that we shall go to live in Milton North. Miss Hale looked up in Margaret's face. I don't think it can be true, said she at length. He would surely have told me. It came strongly upon Margaret's mind that her mother ought to have been told that whatever her faults of discontent, it was an error in her father to have left her to learn of this change from her child. She sat down by her mother and took her unresisting head on her breast, bending her own soft cheeks down caressingly to touch her face. Darling Mama, we were to We were so afraid of giving you pain. Papa felt so acutely. You know you are not strong, and there would have been terrible suspense to go through. When did he tell you, Margaret? Yesterday, only yesterday, replied Margaret, detecting the jealousy which prompted the inquiry. Poor Papa, trying to divert her mother's thoughts into compassion for all her father had gone through. Miss Hale raised her head. What does he mean by having doubts? She asked. Surely he does not mean that he knows better than the church. Margaret shook her head, and the tears came into her eyes. Can't the bishop set him right? asked Miss Hale half impatiently. I'm afraid not, said Margaret, but I did not ask. It is all settled at any rate. He's going to leave Houston in a fortnight. In a fortnight, exclaimed Miss Hale, beginning to take relief in tears. This is very strange, very unfeeling. He has doubts and gives up his living all without consulting me. If he had told me his doubts as at the start, I could have nipped them in the bud. Mistaken as Margaret felt her father's conduct to have been, she could not bear to hear it blamed by her mother. 今天就先读到这儿吧。其实基本上到这儿你就知道他父母的观念还是差的蛮大的。这个本书很多人说是《傲慢与偏见》的平替，但我觉得实际上并没有很浪漫，反而很真实。好，大家晚安。